Thanks so much for listening this evening. And we're going to continue with Musical Memos, the stories behind the hymns by Dr. Lindsay Terry, written in 1969. Several years after this writing and these writings, I had the privilege of serving on staff with Dr. Terry at the Levon Drive Baptist Church in Garland, Texas. How great thou art! Although reports conflict in lesser details, they are generally agreed as to the writing of one of the world's most popular hymns, How Great Thou Art. The hymn, though having been written in 1885, has reached an astounding degree of popularity, mostly since 1955 and George Beverly Shea's recording of it on a RCA Victor label. Much credit is due, probably more than to any other single thing, the New York Crusade with the Billy Graham evangelistic team in 1957 for the popularization of this hymn. It is reported that it was sung more than 100 times during this series of meetings by Mr. Shea. Carl Boberg, as a young man in Sweden, became completely captivated by the wonders of God in a thunderstorm. The lightning flashed, the thunder rolled, and the rains came in. Presently, the rain slackened and stopped. The sun peeked through an opening in the clouds. The birds began to sing, and the little streams made their way to the sea. And Carl Boberg wrote, "O great God." It is today called How Great Thou Art. He wrote 9 verses in all. They were first published on March 13, 1886 in a local newspaper in Monsters, Sweden. Carl Boberg, only 25 years of age at the time of the writing of his hymn, was born in 1859. During his versatile life, he was a pastor, editor of a religious periodical, and served as a member of the upper house of the Swedish Parliament. His song first appeared in a hymnal in 1894. In 1907, it was translated into German and from German into Russian. Reverend Stuart K. Hine, an English missionary, found the Russian version and gave us this translation in about 1927. Although another translation from the original Swedish poem has been written by Mrs. Avis B. Christensen, the former remains by far the most popular. One publication combines the two. At the time of this writing, in many polls in the United States, it is rated along with The Old Rugged Cross, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, and In the Garden. The melody is an old Swedish folk tune. The composer, though unknown to man, has contributed greatly to the success of this wonderful hymn. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. You might want to sing along as Carolyn plays this beautiful hymn. I must tell Jesus. When the role of great preachers is sometimes called, the name of Elisha A. Hoffman is usually omitted. As men count greatness, this omission is justified, but E.A. Hoffman was a mighty servant of God. He was born in Orwigsburg, Pennsylvania, in 1893. He, like his father before him, became an evangelistic minister. He was not only a preacher, but a hymn writer. More than 2,000 gospel songs and hymns are said to have come from his pen. When not working in his study, he could usually be found working with the poor. These tasks, plus his hymns, are what make him truly a great servant of God. While visiting on his church field one day, he came to a home in which sorrow and affliction were frequent visitors. He found the mother of the home in the depths of despair. He tried to quote verses from the Bible that he thought would console her, but seemingly to no avail. Then he suggested that she could do nothing better than to take all of her sorrow to Jesus. "You must tell Jesus," he told her. She just then seemed abstracted in meditation. A light broke across her face and she cried, "Yes, I must tell Jesus." Mr. Hoffman left immediately with those words ringing in his ears, "I must tell Jesus." He went directly home with this inspiration and wrote, "I must tell Jesus all of my trials. I cannot bear these burdens alone. In my distress, He kindly will help me. He ever loves and cares for His own." The church is one foundation, stainless in character, strong in body, steady in nerve, studious in learning, and swift to the defense of the gospel are said to be the characteristics of one Samuel John Stone. Born of evangelical parents in England in 1839, for his training, his father sent him to Charterhouse School in London and to Oxford, where he studied in Pembroke College. His college days were marked by his athletic ability. Later, he wanted to be a soldier, but was hindered by a call of God into the ministry. His tender heart led him to the down and outer. He was a great leader of his people and was beloved by all of them. After serving 8 years in a church in Windsor, he returned to London to help his father in his parish in East End. His labors here so broke him in health that he was changed to the rectory of All Hallows, London Wall. Even in these, his latter years, he enjoyed a remarkable ministry among the shop hands and office workers of London. As the early, cheaper trains began to stream into the city bringing the workers, Samuel Stone would open his church and have periods of singing and short messages for the people. He then would allow them to sit quietly and visit, sew or read until time for them to begin their day's work. He noted that many used the Apostles' Creed in their praying, but that few of them had any comprehension of its meaning. This ignorance, coupled with the blasphemy of the evolutionist and materialist of his day, prompted the writing of one of the truly great hymns used in our churches today, the church's one foundation. The church's one foundation is Jesus Christ, her Lord. She is His new creation by water and the Word. From heaven He came and sought her to be His holy bride. With His own blood He bought her, and for her life He died. No hymn could be no more scriptural. In the first stanza, the writer tells that the foundation of Christ's church is Himself, that a man must be born of water and the Word, and that Christ gave Himself for His church and purchased her with His blood. The hymn tune was written by Charles Wesley's grandson, Samuel Wesley. He was a masterful musician, always on the move and beloved by the people of England. He was at one time acclaimed as England's greatest organist. In the garden, he looked a little like a colonel with his white mustache and always appeared at the office with a small flower in his lapel. He had a marvelous sense of humor and a dry wit which could be very caustic if he thought the occasion demanded it. A truly brilliant man, This was a description of the late C. Austin Miles given to this writer by Mrs. H.A. Dye, a friend of Mr. Miles. If Jesus goes with me, I'll go. Dwelling in Beulah land and in the garden are only a few of the many gospel songs that seem to fall from the pen of Mr. Miles. His In the Garden, at the time of this writing, has become the second most popular gospel song in the United States, according to various polls. More than 1 million recordings of it have been sold. One day, in March 1912, Mr. Miles had been studying the 20th chapter of John, which records the story of Mary's entrance into the garden to visit the tomb of Jesus. As she looked in, her heart was saddened even more because she found him not. Then, as he spoke to her, she recognized him, and her heart jumped for joy. She cried, "Rabboni!" Mr. Miles imagined that he was present with them in the garden on that glorious occasion. He leaped from his chair and, under the inspiration of this sacred scene, penned the verses to this great song. Later that same evening, he wrote the music that has accompanied it on its worldwide circulation. C. Austin Miles was born in Lakehurst, New Jersey in 1868. He wrote his first gospel song at the age of 25. He was music editor and manager of the Hallmark Company for 37 years before the firm became Rodeheaver Hallmark Company. He still continued his connection with the company. He often remarked in his later years that he would make it through another year if he could get through the month of March. Oddly enough, he passed away on March 10, 1946, in Pitman, New Jersey. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I trust you've enjoyed the stories behind the hymn and the music as much as I have. We'll hope to see you on this Sunday morning here at Valley. And if you do not have a church home, we'd be honored and humbled to have you to come and pay us a visit here at 255 Rigg Road, Valparaiso, Indiana. And if you want to look us up online, vbcvalpo.com. Thanks again for listening. God bless you. We love you and thank God for you.